article and in our own experience, it's really important to ask for help. It's really important to say to somebody who probably could help, to say, I'm really having a problem with this. Chances are they'll say, oh, well, this is what I do. It can make life a lot easier. So please, if you're having trouble finding convenient recipes or tricks of how to get enough beans in, or who knows, please ask for help. There's lots of books, lots of resources. We live locally. You can send me an email. I will answer when it's convenient. It will not be an imposition on me. Okay, fair enough? Okay.
Thanks.
It's a deal. I think it needs to be down. No? Okay. Alrighty, so we'll leave this young lady. Yeah, that's it. So we're going to talk now about the most common questions. So when I eat a plant-powered diet, do I have to buy only organic food? Well, it's certainly a good option if it's available and if it's within your budget. However, even ordinary grocery store whole plant foods are safer and cleaner than the cleanest animal products, even compared to organically raised animals. The flesh and secretions of animals, so secretions means dairy and eggs. The flesh and secretions of animals typically have 10 times more persistent environmental toxins due to the bioaccumulation problem than any plant foods. Even the most ordinary, all animal products also come with zoonotic pathogens, so that's the E. coli and the listeria and that stuff. Hormones, they all have hormones. Disease-promoting fats, cholesterol, high saturated fat, all of which are only in the animal kingdom. Plants don't have those. Plants don't poop, some of the teachers say. Even just ordinary whole plant foods reduce intake of toxins significantly. The most important focus is diversity. I love this. Aiming for at least 30 different types of whole plant foods in a week is what your microbiome, so the health-promoting bugs in your intestine, would love you to eat at least 30 different types of plant foods in a week, not in a day, in a week. Personally, I think it's a really fun game, and we did this at the beginning, to take the power plate here that has the fruits, the vegetables, the whole grains, and the legumes, and write off to the side, just print, this week I have eaten this, and this, and this, and this. Oh, and this fruit here, oh yeah, and this whole grain. Yeah, and I tried brown rice, that was good. I might try millet next time. So just adding.
And your spices work too.
Oh,
that's food full of turmeric. That's a plant food.
That counts as a whole type. So we want to aim for 30 different types.
When people say animals are at least 10 times worse than any plant food you're going to get, it's super easy to just picture that. Remember that 13 pounds of grain and the 1 pound of beef? If you have just the 1 pound of grain, that's what we bioaccumulate, whereas the 13 pounds ends up in the fat of the flesh. And that's why it's, beef in that case would be 13 times. But even more importantly, for animal feed, they have all kinds of pesticides and herbicides and all kinds of stuff that is not allowed to be put onto human, wouldn't pass human EPA. So their 13 pounds of soy and corn is full of Monsanto Roundup and so on like that, which you normally wouldn't get in human food. Almost all the Roundup stuff goes to animal feed.
Fiber man. Really, it's the Superman, it's the super thing. Fiber, 50 years ago, fiber was thought to be little more than the roughage that keeps us regular. Well, it's that, it is that. However, current research in modern gastroenterology, so the doctors that deal with this part of our bodies are gastroenterologists. I had to practice to say that word. It's the study of the digestive system, is showing us that fiber is much, much more than just keeping us regular. It's being affectionately called the Clark Kent of the digestive tract. So although it seems simple and boring, it has surprising power. When we eat a varied diet of whole plant foods, the fiber they provide, fruits, vegetables, whole grains not refined, and legumes, all provide fiber, all provide different types. These good guys, got ahead of myself. When we eat a varied diet of whole plant foods, the fiber they provide feeds the health-promoting critters of our intestinal microbiome. So we have good critters and bad critters. When we eat a lot of fiber, we feed the good critters. When we eat a lot of fat and no fiber, like with animal products, we feed the bad critters. These good guys run 70% of our immune system that helps us prevent and fight disease such as cancers, reducing inflammation, cardiovascular disease, and, this is so cool, they produce, down here is where we produce from the good guys, that eat fiber, the serotonin that helps us be happy and clear-headed. Have you ever heard of somebody depressed taking serotonin? It's because they're not eating enough fiber.
Deborah, I have a question or a
Please.
thought about fiber.
Yes.
I'm noticing in some of the social media that I take in that I'm seeing a shift from people focusing on protein
Yes.
to fiber. Are you noticing that?
Yes.
Can you tell me why that's happened or what your thought on why that's happened?
This information
Just
is finally getting out there.
Okay.
As much as there's a lot of nonsense and confusing stuff on the internet, there is also a lot of value. And, if you give yourself, a bit of time to think about it, does it make more sense? The more we know, the easier it is to evaluate, of course. Is that sufficient answer?
Yeah.
Okay. I covered enough?
So, nutrition facts. This is
A very
a
important part
very
of the
important
package.
part of the package. You'll see numbers down here, the percents. You can pretty much ignore them. That says how much of your daily amount is provided by this particular serving. What really matters is when you're looking at calories, how much fat is there? Fat, cholesterol, sodium, those are all things that you want to minimize. So this one's beans, so a little bit less calories in a serving, an awful lot less fat than a steak, and trans fats, or saturated fats, which are the ones that, if you have a lot of them, your liver turns them into cholesterol. So you can have high cholesterol by consuming cholesterol, which we don't need, our liver makes all we need, or by eating too much saturated fat, which as any chemist would know, if you have a system in balance and you have too much of one thing, the other thing will try to come up in balance. So if you have excess saturated fat, it will produce cholesterol to maintain a balance. It's all on that better. So we don't want to have a lot of saturated fat in our diet. And the other thing is sodium. So sodium is always very high in meat.
In all animal products.
In all animal products, yeah. And it can be high or low, depending on the serving. So a lot of canned goods, they actually add salt, so that it helps preserve it and it makes it taste better.
In this situation, we have dried beans. This is a dried bean.
Yep.
Nutrition facts. So the sodium is only 24 milligrams. That's naturally occurring sodium. And so 24 milligrams is much, much less than the calories in that serving, 333 calories. As long as the sodium is less than the number of calories, you can be reasonably sure there's no added salt. And of course, in dried beans, there wouldn't be.
So my point was made, if this was canned beans, this sodium would probably be 400, 500, 600, maybe even 700, depending on which brand you buy.
So when we have a client that we're working with, I teach this thing I call grocery store yoga. So I will demonstrate the grocery store yoga for you. This is the can on the shelf, okay? So I approach, and I turn it around to read the nutrition facts on the back. So this is the pose, grocery store yoga. I evaluate, I go through how much fat, how much salt, I might, not up to the standard I wish to maintain for myself. So then I come out of the pose.
And try the next brand until we find something that's suitable. But you can't beat just the dried bean. If you can just get the dried beans, you will definitely get the least amount of processing and by far the cheapest cost.
So the dried kidney beans are about $2 for the kilogram. The meat, is it over 40? I can't see the slide.
$46. I got this off the IGA website.
This is a few years ago, but
No, I
it's
updated it.
oh, you did? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Good. Another example that we don't have a slide for is what happens to potatoes, plain potatoes, raw potatoes. You can get 100 grams of fresh potatoes for about 60 cents. If you turn them into potato chips with oil and salt, they're about $4 for 100 grams. So it's cheaper, a lot cheaper to eat whole plant foods. Yes, sorry.
Thank you, no, that's okay. I just wanted to say, I can't remember the name of the environmental group that put this out, but since you were initially talking about the environmental impact of our consumption, there's a group and it prints labels just like this. It's called Take Extinction Off Your Plate.
Oh.
And they're talking about, basically planetary extinction as a consequence of environmental damage. And so they look just like this, but it talks about, CO2 emissions, blah, blah, blah. So if you just Google Take Extinction Off Your Plate, and I had this fantasy that we could print up a bunch of labels like that and somehow get them into stores, because people really don't know. That's another just invisible aspect, right? People care about this because they care about their health, but we all have to care about the bigger picture too. So I just wanted to say that.
It's incredibly surprising how few people actually look at this.
Really.
You look at the front and it says low sodium.
Yay!
Yay! Instead of being 600 in the can, it's only 400. Look at the back. Then you'll know. So, dramatically less saturated fat, no cholesterol, low sodium, half, and all meat, eggs, dairy have zero fiber. There is no fiber in animal products.
And we don't have this in our notes, so I'll just add this. One of the coolest things about this, starting with dried beans, is that when you soak them and cook them, you get twice as many beans. So the price effectively goes down per serving.
So Gerry, I'm just curious, I know you said not to look at that, which of course means I'm looking at it. So percent of daily value, like 89% saturated fat. So what is that based on? Like
that depends on who you're looking at. If you're in Canada, there's an RDA. If you're in the States, there's a different RDA. It's the recommended daily allowance.
Okay.
And it's usually extremely generous. What it's based on is animal studies and human studies that say, okay, here's the distribution of how much salt, for instance, is required by a human, and they just reduce until the person starts having low salt in their system, which can cause all kinds of problems. We absolutely must have salt in our our diet.
Sodium.
Yes. But what they do is they say, okay, so here's our average, and then they say, okay, here's the standard deviation, and we're gonna make sure that 99% of people, sort of way out here, get enough.
I see, okay.
Okay, so then that is the RDA.
So if you're eating a vegan diet, do you aim to get 20 grams of saturated fat per day, or do you not bother?
No.
Yeah.
No.
So is there another kind of guideline for these things that you would
Well,
suggest?
I'd like to give an example. Like sodium, the RDA is 1,500, and yet all studies that I've seen say that about 500 is really all you need. So they've taken the studies, and they always put this big, like, they're like engineers. They put a safety factor on, except in some cases the safety factor is excess.
Like with sodium,
Yeah.
because
So-
they're allowing for added salt.
Because it's super easy to get enough sodium in your diet without adding any.
Just eating enough calories.
Yeah, remember you need 2,000 calories, and 2,000 calories, 1,500. So you need less sodium than calories. Now, if you start looking at things like other vegetables, celery and so on, they actually are fairly high. If you eat a varied diet of plant foods, you will get all the sodium you need
Without adding
without
salt.
any added. Yeah. So that's why the average North American is getting 4,000 to 5,000 milligrams of sodium.
And being prescribed medication for high blood pressure.
Yeah. Because that is the average. The average is 4,000 something for US.
Shall we carry on?
Yep.
Calcium, of course, is another question that people often ask if they're deciding to let go of dairy products. So this is also one of my favorite facts. All whole plant foods provide calcium, especially greens and legumes. So when this is true for all minerals, they're in the ground, the plants take them up during their life cycle, and then we eat those. So whatever mineral you're concerned about, it's in the plant food, the whole plant food. Not so good and refined. So white flour, not as good as whole flour. Fruit juice is not as good as the whole fruit, etc. So this fun cow is reminding us that babies of all mammalian species are weaned from all mammalian species, right? Humans included, of course, are weaned from their mother's milk onto the solid foods suited for their species. This is why lactose intolerance in human adults cannot be considered abnormal, because we're not supposed to be having mammalian milk once past the age of weaning. It's a normal state for adult mammals of all species to be lactose intolerant. In the global human community, about 70% of adults are known to be lactose intolerant. The rest, it's a genetic mutation that if they can tolerate dairy in adulthood.
And it's been naturally selected. People in the north
Who had to
had to
survive.
survive needed calories, and the ones who could handle the lactose are the ones that survived. So Germanic, Nordic, British, etc. They have much higher. If you look at African Americans, the vast majority are actually not able to process lactose.
Okay, on to protein. I didn't put this one out at the very beginning. Okay, protein requirements. This, as he said, people are beginning to realize protein's not the problem. This is a way of evaluating how not a problem it is. Does that make sense? So this to me is the bottom line on what kind of food humans are meant to be eating. Our digestive needs, our metabolic need, our digestive abilities and our metabolic needs are met by the essential amino acids in plant foods. Those are our 9 essential amino acids. Those are the only ones we need to take in our diet. We do not need to take in any others. They're all in all plant foods. When we eat a variety of whole plant foods, we get all the right balance. It's that easy.
The reason is because all of the proteins that we make, all of the other amino acids, we have the enzymes required to put these things together to make the other ones. So we can make all we need. As long as we get those, we're fine.
And that's also true of other herbivore animals. So when people say, oh, well, I'm an omnivore, actually that is only referring to their behavior, not in terms of their actual biological need. It's a common myth that humans are omnivores. We're herbivores acting as if we're omnivores. It's different. So Gerry was just saying
so
that
on are in here, and then
the amino
big
acids are
lions.
the building blocks of protein. The different, so examples of omnivores, true omnivores. Do you relate to these animals? Pigs, raccoons, and rats. Do you consider yourself similar to those animals? I sure don't. Everybody's looking at me blankly. That's a true omnivore. They have to have some animal product, it's usually flesh.
Because they can't
and
make
plant
that.
foods.
So if you try to feed any of those a completely vegan diet, they will not thrive,
Unless
unless you supplement somehow.
yeah. And similar with carnivores, examples of true carnivores, vultures, cats, and killer whales. We're really different from them. So interestingly, the omnivores are way more like carnivores, but with some adaptation. An example of that is most bears are considered omnivores. Some have evolved over thousands or millions of years to be herbivores, like pandas, for example. Most will have an omnivore diet. Some are carnivore, like polar bears, for example. So it's a wonderfully fascinating study. This confusion was, again, generated back in 1940 with the initial work done on rats. And unfortunately, they didn't redo the experiments until the 50s. During that 10-year gap, the meat and dairy industries were kind of like, yay, us, but you all need this, our product, so we can give it to you. And the scientists actually creatively developed the theory that we need to combine proteins. You probably hear that if you start talking about eating a plant-based diet, people will say, well, how do you combine your proteins? It was just a theory. It was never an actual thing. It was just a theory that the scientists back in the 40s said, well, these rats show us the amino acids, that we're assuming humans need. But there's a lot of humans on the planet that never eat any animal products. In India and Asia and Africa, they hardly ever eat any animal products, if at all. So how do they make it? How do they manage? It never occurred to them that they were a different taxonomy. So some creative person said, well, I guess it must be because they combine their proteins. Okay, I'll go with that theory. And it was popularized for a long time. It has been debunked. I'm happy to send you many resources that explain why it's just a theory. How's that? Okay. All right, here's the nitty-gritty.
So how much do you need?
Okay, so the World Health Organization recommends that we have 5 to 6% of our calories from protein. That happens to be the amount that's of protein in human breast milk. So human breast milk is produced by the mother of the baby who made the baby, and feeds their growth for absolutely the first 6 months of life, when they grow the fastest that they ever do in their entire life. So that 5 to 6% of their calories from protein is plenty.
It allows them to double in 6 months. You will never ever grow that fast again. So obviously that is enough protein.
So 5 to 6% of our calories needs to come from protein. So this tells you how much protein is in the kinds of foods you eat on a whole food plant-based diet. More than enough. In addition, the Association of Nutrition and Dietetics, which is the largest association for registered dietitians in the entire world, many of the members are Canadian, say that when we consume more than enough protein when we eat a varied diet of low-fat, whole plant foods in sufficient calories to meet our energy needs and maintain our optimal weight, which is a lot of words to say we get enough just by eating our, around 2,000 calories per day. So eat whole plant foods until you're full. If you're not full, keep eating.
It's that simple.
That's
And
a hard
when you think about it,
folks.
back to the 2,000 calories. Legumes, vegetables, and grains, which is where you're going to get most of your calories, they're all over 10. So what's 2,000 calories? 10% is 200. It's super easy to get 200 grams of protein. If you eat your veggies. The only way you wouldn't get more than 10 is if you eat something like an apple, which is very low.
Just eat only apples.
Only apples.
Or
Yeah.
cassava. Cassava is also very low. And there is some kwashiorkor, which is protein deficiency in parts of Africa that are so poor that all they have is cassava. Yeah, that's
you'll
not a
never-
varied diet.
Never ever hear anybody in North America having a protein deficiency.
Okay.
Sorry, I just wanted to say, there are some absolutely top world-class athletes, and including strongmen who have massive muscles who are 100% vegan. So in those cases, they do need more protein, right? But it's all plant-based. But to build muscle, you need more protein, am I right?
Well, they need more than we do.
Yes.
But they
Yes.
also eat more.
They do,
They're
they
eating
do,
4,000
and
or
they
5,000
spend more
calories.
calories, yes.
There they get.
They get
Oh,
it.
absolutely, absolutely. No, I just wanted to say you can build muscle, right?
Yeah.
There's the two ways of talking about protein, as a percentage of calories or raw amounts of. So we eat more food, we get more protein, same percentage, but more. Yeah, Deborah.
One of the things I like to think about around this topic is, the lowly white potato or red potato that, at certain times in our history we've thought of as an evil food, and other times we thought of as an amazing food, and if you're Irish, we thought of as survival food. So the white potato, if you ate enough calories of white potato every day, you would get 10% of your calories from protein.
Right.
So-
And people have done that
Yeah,
on purpose,
it's-
under medical supervision, to prove that
Yeah.
not only they got healthier, they lost excess weight, and it came out of the year or whatever it was. There's a number of success stories of that in the literature that you can find on the internet, or I can send you links. They stopped being diabetic, their heart disease cleared up, they got off blood pressure medication, etc., from eating nothing but potatoes.
Not deep fried or potato chips.
Yeah, that's it.
And it was plain potatoes, not with sour cream and all kinds of pretty bits. So those stories, they all reported it was very, very boring.
And those were people who loved potatoes. If I had to eat only one thing, I don't think for me it would be potatoes. Sweet potato, I'd be good with that. Okay, shall we go on?
Yep.
Okay, so what if we think we're doing well for ourselves to eat more protein, extra protein, protein powder, that sort of thing? This is why that's a waste of money and possibly disease promoting, because we can't store protein. We can only use the amount that we need, and then the rest has to be broken down and flushed, literally.
So fat stores. If you eat fat and you have too many calories, it goes straight into fat cells and you get bigger. Simple. That's a survival thing, so that when we're in a condition where we don't have enough food, our bodies can take that fat and do a thing called ketosis, and we can generate the glucose we need to keep running with fat. Same thing with carbohydrates. Carbohydrates we can store because we have enzymes that turn it into fat.
In glycogen first.
Glycogen first and then fat, if there's excess glycogen. So as long as your system is working properly, you're not diabetic, for instance, the insulin works on the cell and says, oh, there's excess in the bloodstream, let's make it to fat. But there's no storage for protein, zip. So it's just what's circulating in your bloodstream, your lymph system, and so on in your body. You can't eat enough protein today to keep you going for a couple of weeks. It doesn't work.
So if you have more protein, a lot more protein than you need in your system, like I said, the body has to flush it, has to break it down, separate the nitrogen, and there's a lot of ammonia produced. That's not good, right? You don't want to be dealing with a lot of ammonia. So best to just eat the whole food rather than supplementing with protein.
That's where the uric acid comes from.
This particular slide, I haven't changed it at all, is credit to Dr. Christopher Gardner of Stanford University. He's a very much forward personality in plant-based promotion. Okay, we already knew that somebody was going to say something about athletes. So
I tried to get the women up here, but I got overruled because it's gorgeous looking.
there's some
plant-based
amazing
women.
women too. It's not just the men. This was a convenient picture. That's my excuse. So this is the plant-built team. This photo was taken at the 2017 Naturally Fit Games in Texas.
So that's a game where they make sure that nobody is taking drugs and steroids and all that other stuff, but they don't talk about that. This group went there, they're totally clean, plus they're vegan.
They won an impressive 32 medals across a range of sports, including bodybuilding, CrossFit, Olympic weightlifting, kettlebell, and powerlifting. 22 of those 32 awards were first place. So one of the problems in the weightlifting athlete community is people seem to have this idea that if I eat more protein, I'll get stronger. You need to go that step further and actually do the work. You have to actually do the work. You have to use the muscles. You have to exert yourself and lift heavier weights. Just sitting there and chugging down some extra protein, it's not going to cut it. That's more often the problem with armchair athletes, right? Yeah. And of course, I feel sorry for men who have to overcome the myth that men need to eat meat to maintain their masculinity. That's a big pressure. We were talking earlier about what the biggest hurdles are. That's a big one for men. It took me a long time to understand that. So I give a different sort of information to men than I do to women often, because men need to have that explained very specifically. The myth is that when men eat meat, they improve their masculinity, their testosterone level. In fact, the research shows the opposite. When men eat meat and dairy products and eggs, which are all from female animals, which contain female hormones, their testosterone levels go down and their cortisol levels go up. Anybody know what cortisol is? Stress hormone. So men may feel more something like that when they eat meat. That's not testosterone, that's cortisol. cortisol is what drives them to be aggressive and fight and think that there's a problem that they have to solve with their fists. So when the research is showing, when men eat 100% plant-powered diets, their testosterone levels are higher and their cortisol levels are lower, which is a good thing. I have to tell you, it's a lot easier to live with a man who eats a plant-powered diet. They also smell better. Did I say that? Sorry. Enough on that?
Yeah.
So we did mention diabetes. That's what T2DM stands for, type 2 diabetes mellitus. That's the whole medical name.
So type 1 is the one that typically they call early onset diabetes. The kids get it. There's a lot of theories about why it happens, but in their case, their ability to make insulin has been damaged. So they typically have trouble all their life. Type 2 diabetes, however, is earned. You have to work at it. It's caused by excess fat, which gets into the cells and blocks the insulin receptor. So it's not so much that you can't make insulin, it's that your cells don't respond to it.
Oh, that was perfect. So the belief that carbs are the enemy has a long history. It started back with the Greek physicians who had no microscope, they had no way of testing blood. The way they diagnosed their patients was by tasting their urine. Yeah. So the urine tasted sweet. So the physicians, now these are, of their time, these are the primo physicians that the world had back then. And they said, well, the urine tastes sweet, so we have to take sugar out of your diet.
And it works temporarily. It works because the diabetes is caused by high blood sugar levels. So if you don't eat the sugar and things like that, then you don't get the same spike.
However,
but it doesn't solve the problem. The problem is that your cell's receptors aren't working. So then what do you think?
so since the advent of the electron microscope, was that 1920 or something, very early 1900s, it has been known, although this information has been slow to come out, that the problem in the cell is being clogged with fat. So this is why you see that graph. Type 2 diabetes goes down the more people eat whole plant foods. So we will give you a disclaimer at the end saying, if you're taking any medication, but I'll just say it again, if you're taking any medication for this, or for blood pressure, I will say again later too, please tell your doctor that you're going in this direction because your medication will need to be reduced.
And I can give you a little anecdote about that. Shortly after my mom died, my dad came out from Ottawa and he lived with us for a couple of months. And as soon as he got here, he said, "Oh, don't do anything special for me, I'll just eat what you're eating." And so we knew that we had to be careful. So we had blood pressure cuff, and he had no problem with diabetes, but he had high blood pressure, he was on medication.
Two medications.
2 medications for the blood pressure, yeah. So we started just eating like us, and within the first week, his blood pressure was getting so low, he was starting to feel a little bit dizzy. And the monitoring also showed that it had come down. So he stopped one of the pills. He was far away from his doctor and we needed to do something, so he just cut it out. And then about a week later, it kept going down. And so what he did, the other pill, it had a little X in it, so he broke it in half, started using half of it. By the end of the month, he had no pills anymore, and his blood pressure had come down it had been running around 150 or so, with spikes out, even with the drugs. He was down regularly in about 130 to 140 with no drugs. And over the rest of the time, and that convinced him, and he completely kept with the diet for the rest of his life and never had to do any more pills. At that point, he had 0 pills, and his blood pressure was under control the rest of the time.
Lots and lots of success stories like that in the literature.
But the important thing is we've been monitoring it and we took care of it, right? If you do it and you start feeling dizzy and you fall and you injure yourself, that would not be good. And likewise with type 2 diabetes, you can go into shock. Once your cells start working and pulling that sugar out of the blood, if you don't reduce the medication that is trying to do the same job, you will overdo it and suffer from low sugar in the blood, and that can be fatal.
Oops. So this relates to, well, weight loss. The calorie density of foods is the new way of doing weight loss. Instead of trying to count calories, which are notoriously flawed and difficult to keep up to be accurate, doing the calorie density approach is far more successful. So you see the red line on the bottom part, the green line above it.
Eat more of that and eat less of this. And it's because
that oil is the worst of the worst, 4,000 calories. So if you have a vegetable salad with some fruit on the side, and you've got some potato and some beans and stuff, and you have that meal, and maybe the meal adds up to, I don't know, maybe 300 calories, and you put the oil dressing on it, you double the calorie intake of that meal. So oil is the worst of the worst, which is one of the reasons why it's a really good idea to start cutting down on that at whatever speed is comfortable for you.
I'd like to say one other thing. Oil is essentially like white sugar. White sugar is a complex carbohydrate that has been processed until it is pure sucrose. No other ingredients. That's why white sugar is considered bad, because it's pure calories, has no nutrients. Well, it has one nutrient, it has calories.
And
oil is exactly the same.
The white sugar of the
but
fat
with
melt.
We have 10 more minutes then.
Okay, yeah. We have.
So basically, you can eat as
slides.
much as you want of that top group and feel completely full. Whereas if you try doing the calorie restriction stuff, usually you're suffering. You feel like you're not getting enough to eat.
And you wouldn't be. Learning to eat enough, learning to eat more food. That can be a challenge for people who have had to watch their weight all the years.
So we've covered this already.
Yeah, we have.
We can just...
Phytoestrogen in soy has the opposite of the animal estrogen. This is a really cool thing. The Universal Food Guide, the lead author was Dr. Elizabeth Dean, Professor Emerita Dr. Elizabeth Dean of B.Sc. She worked with an international team of medical and nutrition experts, and they came up with this program. You may have heard about planetary diet. They called this universal. So these are their recommendations.
Is that daily?
Yes.
Yeah.
If you're a small, older woman who is less active, that might seem like too much food.
Just take smaller portions.
Smaller portions. If you're an active, younger male, that may not seem like enough. Eat more.
More of that where you need the calories.
So now here is very relevant to Canadians in general. This is Canada's food guide. This is the current Canada's food guide, published in 2019. If you go on the internet and look for Canada's food guide, this is what you see. As you can see, animal products are a very small amount in that upper quadrant, which they call the
They call
protein
it
group.
protein foods, and they've got a couple of examples of meat, but they've got legumes and beans and nuts, etc. And
So
if you
how-
go to page 2, it says, and we recommend that you stick with that you minimize the animal products. So it actually, in our very own Canada Food Guide, they're saying eat lots and lots of fruits, veggies, and so on. And I think they had to do that just so they didn't have a
Revolution or
revolution
rebellion.
or rebellion from the meat and dairy industry. So it's called, like, why would you call it a protein food? Just tons of protein in all of these things. But anyway, that's the protein group, and that part of people's thinking, I need protein. It's not a separate thing. Every plant food has protein. Okay, Deb.
Yeah. Podcasts. If you're a fan of podcasts, some people tell me these days that they really like podcasts. They can put it on to play while they're vacuuming or running or whatever they do. I have a wonderful list of podcasts I would be happy to share with you. We're not going to dwell on that today. That's a good example of one. There are only 2 supplements that almost everybody needs when eating a whole food plant-based diet. Now, everybody who eats a plant-based diet needs to take vitamin B12, period. It's not negotiable or any debatable anymore. However, if you're over 55, even if you are eating animal products, you still probably need to take vitamin B12. A young doctor I was talking with about a year ago, we were talking about all this stuff. She was very knowledgeable. I was very pleased. And she said, yeah, I've been amazed how many people test low in B12 who eat animal products, so they think they're covered. You don't want to mess with potentially developing a B12 deficiency.
The reason is, as we get older, our ability to absorb it decreases. So the supplement, again, driving force, if you have lots of B12 coming in, it ends up in your bloodstream.
Can you, so I've had over the years people very snarkily say to me on occasion, oh, well, if humans are in fact herbivores and eating plants is all we need, how come vegans have to supplement with B12? So I have an answer that I give. I would love to hear your answer.
It depends who I'm talking to.
Talk to us.
This'll gross you out. Sure grossed me out when I first found out about
How would I do it?
early humans.
Coprophagy. Coprophagy is absolutely common amongst all apes. They eat their own shit. Because we make,
You're being
somebody doesn't
censored.
want me to say that. we make B12 in our lower intestines, but it doesn't get absorbed there. It only gets absorbed in the small intestine. So somehow it has to get recycled. So that's how, like, and babies will, if you don't watch them, they'll go and do that. It's instinct. We have to train them not to. It's not healthy. There's all kinds of things you can get from it. So it's not a good idea, but that is the normal way. If you look at it, that's one way. And the other thing is, our food is super clean now. This stuff is made by bacteria, cyanobacteria, I think it is, and it's on everything. That, like, where does the cow get it? It's from all of the grass it's eating, and the dust and all of the stuff that's in there. So if we were eating like that, we'd be getting a lot too. So what's your?
Yeah, similar. I actually don't go into the poo eating aspect, but it just like even water, right? Like, I mean, like when we were drinking from streams, there were natural bacteria that produce B12, etc. So now everything is sanitized. So it really has to do with super sanitation rather than. Well, that's
The advantage of that super sanitation is no E. coli, no beaver fever. And I do want to mention the vitamin D. For Canadians in the winter, no matter what you eat, probably a good idea to supplement with D. Your doctor may have suggested some amount that would be good for you. And I put a vegan D3 there because it is available. It's made from lichen. It's refined from lichen. The non-vegan ones, and they won't say non-vegan on the label, it's just D3, is made from sheep's lanolin. So no sheep has to die for it. They didn't need to get sheared anyway. That's a gray area in my mind. If you can get the vegan one, you're that much clearer. In any case, those are two. This one, for this group, probably everybody should start taking B12. We can talk about why and how, and there's so much information on that. Your doctor may not know all the ins and outs because they just assume that if you're eating meat, you're getting enough. Anyway, we have to move along, I'm sorry. Lots of information available on that. Some wonderful registered dietitians who put out some great stuff. Okay, so one more time, I'm going to invite you to stay connected. I have an email list of over 100 people on the Sunshine Coast who are interested in some level of eating a plant-based diet, some very keen vegans, and all the way down to some brand newbies who are still struggling. So you don't have to be vegan to join it. And I'd love to talk recipes with you or whatever you might want. Okay, here's the disclaimer. If you're taking any medication, please tell your doctor. It'll have to be reduced. So medication for cholesterol would be slower, much slower. It's nowhere near as urgent a change. It typically takes many months. For many people, it takes years for the cholesterol level to go down. But in any case, and I can give you information that you can share with your doctor, specially written for physicians. 2 more slides here. The 4-leaf survey is kind of fun. It's like having your own private registered dietitian. It's a survey that you can do for yourself, only you will see it. That will help you do a quick and easy dietary assessment to help you understand where you're at with your own diet and where you might want to go in order to minimize your climate footprint and improve your health. Last one, time's pretty good. This is a great resource, Plant-Based Canada. Simple tool, big impact. They provide a lot of assistance, recipes and meal planning, and I like that it's Canadian. There are some good Canadian ones, and this is one of them. That's it.
Whoa, thank
Thank you for your kind attention, and we do wish you all the best, and we hope to see you all again.
you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
So come and have a chat if you like. We're not in a rush.
Thanks for coming. What's that?
Thank you, White, for the cake.
Oh, sure, we'll have some more.